Hello. There will be peace in the valley. This is Study Coach narrating for you. There will be peace in the valley for me. Lord, I pray there'll be no sadness. We are taking a trip to Paris. No sorrow I see. There will be peace in the valley for me. It is a little bit of a sad tale. There will be peace. So let us begin the story. Study Coach narrating for you. A bunch of violets in Paris. Now, this is not a story that I'm going to tell you, so it's not quite a story. It is just a little thing that happened one day when I was out walking, and which I've never forgotten. And it did not happen in London, but in Paris, where I was then living. And some of you may have been there, and if so, you know better than I can tell you what a very pretty, bright, and charming place it is. That is to say, the best parts of the town are pretty and bright looking, especially in summer weather. But there are poor parts of Paris too, though you are not likely to have seen them, and alas, there are many very poor people also. Now, I was walking that day in the long road, or avenue rather, which is called, I think it's called Champs-Élysées. It is very wide indeed, and bordered on both sides by beautiful trees, among which is the summer are to be seen quantities of well-dressed people walking about or seated and enjoying the lively scene around them. Children by the score are there too, richly dressed and playing at all sorts of games attended by their governesses or nurserers. And all this joined to the constantly passing brilliant carriages make eyes, unaccustomed to the sparkle and glare, soon get weary. Even I, who am used to Paris and its ways as I was, felt tired of the whirl and rush, and I thought to myself I would turn out of the wide thoroughfare and make my way home by some quieter side street. I was standing at the edge of the pavement with this intention. I was waiting there, should come a safe moment to cross, when I caught sight of a little group not far from me, and I could not help watching what was going on with interest. A flower cart was drawn up at the side of the road, though it was scarcely yet full summer. There was a good display of flowers, and many of those passing stopped to buy. Among these were an old gentleman and a little boy. One could see without being told that they were grandfather and grandson. The child said a word or two to the gentleman, who let go his hand and walked on slowly. The little boy waited patiently for a minute or two, till those before him round the cart had been served, and then he came forward and made some inquiry of the flower woman. I could not hear what he said, but he was, no doubt, he was asking what he could have for his money. For once or twice a shade of disappointment crossed his bright face, and he looked doubtfully at something he held in his hand, which I afterwards saw must have been his few coins. I felt so sorry for him that, if I had not been afraid of giving offence, I would have offered him the little sum he was evidently short of. But after half starting forward to do so, I drew back again. The boy though simply, almost poorly clad, had too much the air of a gentleman, and so had the old grandfather, whose stooping figure I still perceive slowly walking on in front. At last, the boy, after peering all over the flower cart, caught sight of a little nest of violets, sweet scented violets, in one corner, which had been almost hidden by the larger and more brilliant plants. His face lighted up joyfully as he pointed them out to the flower woman, and she in turn smiled and nodded pleasantly. Poor thing, poor thing. She could not afford to lower her prices, but the working classes in France have great sympathy with small means and the economy they oblige, and I could see that she was glad for her little customer not to be altogether disappointed of his purchase. She chose carefully the prettiest and freshest of the violet bunches, wrapped an extra leaf or two round the stalks to keep them cool, and handing the little bouquet to the boy, smiling, received from him the coppers still now tightly clasped in his hand. And with all the brightness back in his face again, the little fellow bounded forward to rejoin his grandfather, as light-hearted and light-footed as a young chamois. I crossed the road and walked on. The little incident had interested and pleased me. I could not help wondering for whom the flowers were intended. Perhaps a sick mother or grandmother, perhaps. The child, not improbably an orphan, seeing that he was in the care of a grandparent. And I went on picturing to myself the simple, thrifty home to which the pair were by this time wending their way, little thinking that I should ever see either of them again. I was by now in one of the handsome side streets running parallel with a great avenue. It was quieter here. There were fewer carriages on foot passengers, so that on the wide road even a small group was plainly seen, and happening to glance backwards, I saw a sad little procession making its way slowly along. Two men, dressed in black, were carrying a little coffin. No heavy burden, it was plain, yet heavy was the sorrow of the two mourners following close behind. It was but the funeral of a tiny child, a baby, or scarce more than a baby to judge by the size of the coffin. The only one of the poor father and mother alone in their grief who walked behind. They were of the very poor class of Paris working people, though decently clad, as is almost always the case in France, but too poor to have got mourning for themselves, even for the funeral of their child. The woman, it is true, had a black skirt, but over it she wore, perhaps to conceal its shabbiness, a clean checked cotton apron, and the poor father had no attempt in mourning, except a little band of rusty black fastened round the left sleeve of his blue working blouse. They were both weeping, the mother openly, her poor eyes swollen and red, as if with many hours of tears, the husband trying to keep calm, as he from time to time wiped his weather-beaten cheeks with his sleeve. Their poverty was shown in another way. There was not a single flower, much less a wreath or cross on the little black draped coffin. So sad, so piteously desolate a funeral. It has seldom been my lot to see in Paris. Yet, poor as it was, it met with the outward marks of respect and sympathy which I often wish we could see in England, for every head was uncovered as it passed on its sorrowful way. I stood still for an instant to watch it. Suddenly, a small figure, rushing across the road, darting nimbly in front of a quickly advancing carriage, as if afraid of being too late, caught my eyes. It was my little friend of the violets. There was no mistaking it, and his grandfather's. It seemed to me almost familiar figure, waiting and looking after the child from the other side of the road. What is the boy in such a hurry for? Ah, I see now, and my own eyes are not free from tears. Breathless and eager, he runs up to the poor little procession. With blushing face and gentle hands, he lays on the tiny coffin his treasured violets, beautiful in themselves, doubly beautiful as a gift of a sweet and pitiful heart, and without waiting for the thanks, ready to burst forth from the overladen hearts of the two parents, hastens back again to his old grandparents, his old grandfather, whose face I can distinguish lit up with a smile of tender approval. God bless him, the poor father murmurs. I am near enough to hear it. God bless him, the weeping mother repeats. God bless him, I whisper to myself. Inasmuch as ye have done it unto one of the least of these my brethren, ye have done it unto me. There will be peace in the valley. There will be peace in the valley for me. Lord, I pray. There will be sadness, no sorrow. There will be peace. I hope you, though it's a sad little story, I hope you enjoyed it. This is Study Coach doing some storytelling, and my name's Morale. I will be back. I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye.